Today, I'll be informing you about how baseball is dying. My name is Trevor Bryant. I'm a freshman here at Mid. I play baseball here at Mid. I've been playing ever since I was 3. That's about it. But the good old days of baseball are no longer here. It's sad to say, but we need to move forward. The big piece, the takeaway from this is the old heads versus the new heads. That's kind of what's this whole topic is about. Because baseball used to be considered one of America's pastimes, one of America's favorite sports to watch. When they come home from a long day of work, they just want to flip on the game, drink a beer, have a good night with the family. That's what America used to be. That's what they wanted to be. But sadly, that's not the case anymore. Today, the younger generation, such as myself, they want the game to be more energetic, fun, entertaining, and it's just not that. I'll be explaining that through 5 different points: money, players, movement, locations, and COVID. The reason that money is an issue with today's game is because they lock down these players to big and long contracts. Like, for example, the best player in the game of current signed a $400 million contract for over 10 years. And how great that might seem and how great it is for the player, it's not great for the sport of baseball, because that 10 years you're locking him down in a not so good organization. It's where he got drafted to, so it's where he's going to stay the rest of his career, but they have no shot at making the postseason. They are just a bad team, but they have the best player in the league. And he's going to get hid in that program even though he's the best player in the league. So it's like, for example, if LeBron signed with the Orlando Magic, where a team where it's like not really talked about a lot in the NBA, but the best players on your team, it's kind of the same thing. And with that, unlike other pro sports of football and basketball, baseball doesn't have cap space. So that's why these teams are willing to pay these players such high price, because they can, and that's why they are able to prolong these contracts, because otherwise they're going to go bankrupt after their first few years of paying these guys all this money. So that's why they're able to expand the contract out so they can defer the payments out. So that makes it detrimental to the sport because of my point, movement. The sport is relevant all year round, but not for baseball. For example, the NBA. The NBA, probably one of the most talked the NBA is talked about is during its off season. And how, you may ask? Well, it's because of the free agent market. We've already seen 3 times the best player in the league, LeBron James, go to a different team. You want to know how long ESPN has spent on each of those transactions? At least a week. At least. And then for the next few months throughout the offseason, they're talking about, if they bring in this guy, they're able to do this, blah, 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 and the predictions of that. So, like, throughout the entire offseason, they're still talking about the sport of basketball. Unlike in the MLB, where they don't have that movement, they don't have that person that is trying to get a new contract. They don't have a lot of it. Yes, it still happens, but it's not as frequent. Like in the NBA, they have like anywhere from 5 to 7 like key guys that is going to control and be the most talked about during the off season. Unlike the MLB, where they have like 3 maybe, and then they get signed these big contracts, and then you don't hear about their them during the off season for the next 8 to 10 years. So that's why it's detrimental to sign these long contracts. And the players that are playing the sport now, they don't want to follow the rules of the old heads. Like, the old heads believe that you should play the game the right way, the smart way, the technique way. Like, they just want to be like super methodical throughout the sport of baseball, while the new generation just wants to have fun, be flashy, and just show their love through the sport through their swag, I guess. Fernando Tatis Jr. is probably the most hot new person in the sport of baseball, and it's because of his swagger. Like, he got so much heat this past year when he hit a home run on a 3-0 pitch, which, according to the old heads, oh, you got to take that, blah, blah, blah. Don't ever do that ever again. They were criticizing this man, crucifying this man for hitting a home run. How bad is it that he hit a home run? And it's because he doesn't care. He plays the game he wants to play. And I think that's the new school mentality, is I'm going to play how I want to play. It's not going to follow these rules. If I'm batting 300 with 25 home runs and a couple 80 RBIs, why am I going to follow what you said when I can do this my way? Like, that's just kind of the new school mentality, and it keeps, like, everyone, like, interested in the game. Like, this person plays this way, this person plays that way, this person still plays this way, blah, blah, blah. So you get more talking about it, like, oh, he looks really cool doing that way. What you're doing is boring. And it's kind of the entertainment purposes of it. And it's just why the baseball is dying, is because the old heads are still, like, lingering around, even though they're not playing the sport anymore. They still, like, talk about it, all that stuff. Yeah. And locations probably is my next topic. Just the big versus small market teams. It's a lot easier for bigger market teams such as the Dodgers, the Yankees, Astros, and all the teams in, like, bigger cities, bigger market. Obviously, they get more money to pay these bigger players. So although they can sign all these players, it's somewhat easier for them to get revenue, get these better players, and provide a better team, unlike these smaller market teams where it's harder for them to get money to get these better players. And so I kind of think there should be somewhat of a cap space. I wouldn't say necessarily a cap space on the money ends, because although that they sign to long contracts, I think the money is what makes it worth it to a certain extent. Because if I'm going to be tied down to 10 years, I better be getting a lot of money. Because if you guys suck, I better still be getting paid while I play for your sucky team, you know? So I think there should be a cap space on the amount of years you can sign. So, like, the maximum you can sign is like a 5-year deal instead of a 8 to 10, which is like the norm apparently nowadays. So if they have a cap on the years you can sign a contract, it not only prevents long-term where they're staying in that team for a long time. It helps the movement. It helps the players get more recognition. It helps not only the teams of the smaller market to have a chance at these players once again, because it's not like, oh, we wanted that guy back in 2015, but now he's still somewhat good, so we can go after him again. But it's not like, oh, in like 10 years now, I'm not going to go after him anymore because he signed for a 10-year contract. And with COVID, I kind of think it somewhat helped and hurt at the same time. I think it helped in a way that because COVID shortened the season, although it made it very difficult for everyone to enjoy anything during this time, agreed, but shortening the season is probably better for the MLB because they play 162 games in a regular season plus the postseason. So I think with them shortening the season, they get to have a taste of what it's like to have a shortened season, and I think they might take a look in the future of shortening the season again, and just like maybe from 162, they only play like I think like 58 regular season games this year or something like that. maybe not quite that drastic of losing 100 games, but I think like maybe somewhere around 100-ish, somewhere around there, just so that there's more breaks, because these guys play day in and day out. And it can be exhausting. And for the player, it's exhausting. And for the fan, I don't want to watch the same thing over and over and over again, day in, day out, day in, day out. If that's my favorite team, like I would want to probably do something else. Like if like the diehard fans of like the old heads, for example, they're actually gonna tune in or whatever, but then your ratings aren't that good. You're not gonna have the younger generation watching it, because oftentimes the game they watch today is much like the game they watched a few days ago and the same game they watched a few years ago. It just, the wow factor isn't in the game of baseball anymore, and that is why baseball is dying. So through money, the players, the movement, the locations, and COVID, those are the reasons why I think the sport of baseball is dying, and that is why I think baseball is no longer America's pastime. Thank you.